on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntyre, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, 1 or 2 still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a very special, very intriguing night of live Penguin TV. Now, I'm sorry we started our countdown a little bit early tonight. If you guys are local to the Bass Coast area, which is where we are here on Phillip Island, you might have noticed that there's a fair few storms, lots of lightning and thunder and rain around at the moment. So unfortunately here at the Penguin Parade, we kind of have a bit of a power outage that have affected our cameras tonight. So I know a lot of you, especially you regular water watchers out there, and the water watchers are the people that we call the people who would regularly tune into live Penguin TV when we were running during lockdown. Our regular water watchers and all of you new people who are joining us tonight, hello and welcome. I'm sure you are looking forward to seeing lots and lots of penguins crossing the beach tonight, but unfortunately we won't be able to show you penguins this evening just because of our power outage. We're really sorry, but we have an extra special guest going to be here with us tonight. So we are tonight going to be joined by Dr. Peter Dann, who is the research director here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, and he in a moment is going to be appearing just on top of me on the screen down at the bottom, and we're going to be having a little bit of a chat about all things penguin and research because he's been working here for over 40 years. So get your questions ready, all you live streamers on Facebook and YouTube. We have the lovely Rachel joining us tonight. Rachel, come on in, say hello so they can see your beautiful face. Rachel, tell us before you go, what are you going to be doing tonight?
Yeah, we'll be monitoring your questions down on Facebook and YouTube. Sorry guys. And please feel free to ask away. If you've got any questions for Peter or Jordan, I'll be more than happy to pass it on. And yeah, welcome once again.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Jordan.
much, Rach. So as I said, this week we have an extra special live stream planned for you. We are going to be introducing you to some of the wonderful experts and researchers and some really, really cool people who we're really, really lucky to work with here at Phillip Island Nature Parks. So I'm just going to be calling in Peter Dann, again, our research director, into our live stream. So just bear with me, guys. I'm going to be seeing him first there, and you should be able to hear him now. Peter, can you hear me? Say hello, give us a sign.
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, Jordan. How are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Not at all. Great night for looking at penguins.
Oh my gosh, look at all the penguins on the screen. Isn't this fantastic? So again, sorry, Peter, we were expecting to see quite a few penguins crossing the beach here tonight, but unfortunately we just had the power outage. But I'm glad we could still have some fun conversations along here tonight, and we'll make sure, I'm sure those water watchers will be out in the comments asking lots and lots of questions, and we'll be able to ask you some juicy questions and get to know a little bit more about what you do in your role, and get you to share some of your story. So again, thank you so much for joining us. A big warm welcome. So just before we'll get into some more other information in a moment, but just quickly tell us what your role is here at Phillip Island Nature Parks.
Well, as the research director, I lead a small group of 9 marine scientists, field officers and technical staff. And basically our remit is to look at the biological resources of the island, particularly the key wildlife species, and to see that they're managed correctly, to monitor their populations and their breeding and their occurrence patterns on the island. And it's really a great honour because on Phillip Island we have the largest groups in the world of little penguins, Australian fur seals and short-tailed shearwaters. And in addition to that, we manage 3 significant populations of threatened species, being hooded plovers, fairy terns and eastern barred bandicoots. And a responsibility that we take very seriously, of course, and it's a great honour. So that's essentially what we're about in research. We're informing and working out management plans and predicting threats and mitigating threats for all these important and significant wildlife.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Peter. So it sounds like it's a really, really big job, and you've been at it for over 40 years. So you are definitely the expert in the field, which is fantastic. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm looking forward to hearing all of your experience and stories throughout the night. I know we've got a few topics in mind already that we're going to be covering. But you mentioned Phillip Island Nature Parks, which is who we are here at the Penguin Parade. If you visited us here, thank you so much for coming to join us. If you're unaware, Phillip Island Nature Parks, we're a self-funded non-for-profit conservation organisation, which means we get our profits from tours, tickets, souvenirs, and that goes directly into a lot of the research work that Peter Dann just talked about just now. So helping us to learn more about all of our wonderful wildlife here on Phillip Island and our threatened species that he mentioned as well. And we're able to learn as much as we can about them through people coming to our doors at the Penguin Parade, Koala Conservation Reserve, Churchill Island Heritage Farm, and the Nobby's Antarctic Journey. So it's really, really important, the work that we do. We're in a rapidly changing climate and landscape here on Phillip Island and all over the world. So the more that we can research, the more that we know about our threatened species, their threats, and the impacts that humans and other kind of natural processes have on them, we can best manage them, which is a huge role of what you do. Isn't that right, Peter?
That's correct.
Beautiful. So again, if you've come to visit us here at the Penguin Parade, thank you so much for supporting us. If you are interstate or overseas and you can't visit us here at the moment and you would like to help us with some of the research work that we do, some of the stuff that Peter Dann does, please consider donating to the Penguin Foundation, because that's a really great way where you can adopt a penguin, you can become a penguin pal or make a one-off donation. Tax deductible, always a good one, and that goes towards our ongoing research and different research projects that we have here. And Peter, another thing that, as you know, we like to do at the start of our any meetings or any talks or any live streams, or you water watchers will be familiar with this as well. One thing that we find is really, really important is to acknowledge the land that we're joining you from today. So we are, of course, here on Phillip Island. I believe you're just off the island, Peter.
That's correct.
Excellent. We are both here on Boonwurrung land, and the Boonwurrung people are the traditional custodians of the land, seas and skies here in the Bass Coast area, all the way up to Melbourne, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and we really appreciate the way that the Boonwurrung have maintained this land very sustainably in a fashion over so many thousands of years. So thank you so much for always acknowledging the custodians where you're on as well, Peter, in your meetings and things like that. I know you always do that. It's a really respectful thing. Is there anything else that you would like to say in that vein, or shall we jump right into penguins and research?
No, only just to agree wholeheartedly with your recognition of traditional owners and their rights to these lands.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So, we are here, of course, to talk about penguins. Peter, tell me, what is your favourite thing about little penguins? So the smallest species of penguins in the world that live here on Phillip Island.
I think it's probably what makes them attractive to many people is their small size, but the fact that they seem to be rather oblivious to us when they come out of the water, and so there's no sort of real skittishness. They're generally just quite engaging and quite oblivious to us.
And quite curious as well.
Yeah, curious indeed, yes, that's right. And so that's a very, very endearing trait, I think, that they go about their lives more or less as if we aren't there, which makes a very inclusive kind of feeling.
Absolutely. So you might have, again, if you have been watching live penguin TV, you would have heard lots of the rangers telling stories of working with penguins. Of course, they look super cute and cuddly, but Peter, Dan and I can tell you that they are absolutely not cute and cuddly. In fact, I pre-warned Peter Dan today that I would be asking for a funny story or an embarrassing moment that he had out in the field to share with us. And I think he has a very relevant story, which I'm going to throw him under the bus with. So tell us, Peter.
It was very early. It was in the early 80s. And in those days, I was mostly the only research person here. And so I was working at night and I was weighing and measuring penguins about 2:00 in the morning.
2 o'clock?
Yes.
My goodness.
It was pretty hard in those days. We've got wonderful weigh bridges now that weigh penguins, but we had to do them all by hand in those days. I had all my weighing machines and calipers and things in a bag on my lap, and I had the penguin in my lap as well, and I reached over to the bag was on the other side of the penguin. I reached over to get something out of the bag, and the penguin stood up and grabbed me by the nose, by the nostril, and it was extremely painful, and my eyes watered, and I thought it was a painful exercise. But it wasn't until I got home that night that I looked in the mirror and I discovered I actually had a pierced nose. The penguin's beak had actually gone through and pushed out a plug of skin out of my nose.
Ouch!
So and this was before nasal jewelry was popular, so I couldn't capitalise on it at all.
Damn, actually, you beat me to it. That was absolutely going to be my question. Was it kind of a fashionable back in the day to have a nose piercing? Maybe you could have started a trend, Peter.
Yes, I could have. Yes.
Wonderful. So the penguins that live with us here on Phillip Island, you can just see George, who's one of our beautiful, here we go. Some of you might have met George. He's just working kind of in the background to see if, actually not entirely sure what he's doing at the moment, but we might see George's head pop in every now and then. So while these penguins are very, very cute and they look very cuddly, they are very incredibly feisty. They are completely wild penguins, so we never handle them unless they're sick or injured or for research purposes, some of the things that Peter Dan will definitely be familiar with. I myself have had my fair share of scratches, bites and being pooed on out in the field. So yeah, definitely don't recommend it. moment we are here in their home, we try to be as hands off as possible and let them have their normal behaviours so that we don't affect the way that they are able to get back home. Alrighty, so Peter, I've made a little bit of a joke of you to start off with, sorry, but I want to impress upon everyone that Peter is a very, very impressive man. As I said, he has been working with us here at Phillip Island Nature Parks for over 40 years, and he's done some incredible stuff to be able to help protect the penguin. Hang on a minute. Do we have penguins? I think we might have penguins. Do we have penguins, George? Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So sorry, Peter.
No, that's good.
It's all a little bit of... Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. We are just checking out the technology. We've got a black screen again. Hopefully we can get some penguins back up on the screen very shortly.
Excellent.
But in the meantime, I'm going to be there we go. We've got our penguin highway. We have penguins, everyone. So again, I'm just going to... Thank you, George. You are an absolute legend. Fantastic. Looks like the power is back on down at the beach where our cameras run through. So yay, I'm glad we are all able to see some penguins tonight. Now, Peter, do you still have those two links open where you can see the penguins?
I've got two black screens. I'll close and start again, shall I?
Yeah, you can start again or maybe refresh them. And just for everyone's viewing pleasure at home, I'm going to be zooming in on these cute little friends just over here so we can see some penguins that have been out at sea all day and they're coming home back to their burrows here on land in Phillip Island.
And maybe we can go through yesterday's number, Jordan.
Oh, yes, all you waddle watchers out there who are probably desperate to know how many penguins we had crossing the beach. Now, before I get the answer rate, so if this is your first time watching live Penguin TV, everyone, we are actually counting penguins here nearly every single night at the Penguin Parade, and we've been doing that since 1968. So actually before even Peter started working here. Peter, have you had a chance to count penguins at your time here at Phillip Island Nature Parks at the Penguin Parade?
Yes. In the 1980s, we actually counted them every night, and I did that 10 nights every month in a row for a couple of years. So I chalked up about 1,000 visits to the Penguin Parade, which will hopefully be a record that gets broken soon by some of our rangers, our experienced rangers. But yes, I've done my fair share of penguin counting.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, again, I'm just going to pause from the profession of the live stream. Can you see the two cameras now, Peter?
Yes, I've got them.
Excellent. We are all a go. Feel like we should even just start from scratch, but no, we are committed. We are going to keep on going. Technology is fantastic and we're going to keep going. All right, beautiful. So I imagine back in the 1980s, Peter, things would have been quite different here. Oh, no, sorry. I'm getting off track. We were talking about counting penguins. So, we want to know exactly how many penguins come in. Now, before I get the magic number from Rachel, Peter, do you remember the highest number of penguins that you counted when you were here at the Penguin Parade? Or a rough number?
Well, in the 80s, it would have only been sort of 1,500 to 1,700, probably 700.
1,500 to 1,700 penguins? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, that might sound like a lot of penguins, which you know what, it is. That's a very good night if you see 1,500 to 1,700 penguins making their way home. I've got a little bit of a clue for all you water watchers out there. We had just a smidge more than that tonight, and we'll go through in a moment once we get that magic number exactly why we have so many more penguins coming home and calling Phillip Island their home. So I hope you're all ready. Drum roll, everyone. Rachel, what was the magic number of penguins that crossed the beach last night?
We've got 3,521, Jordan.
3,521 penguins crossed the beach last night, everyone. That is a stack of penguins. Peter, how do you think you would go if you were counting those penguins crossing the beach?
It would be a wonderful experience.
It'd be wonderful. Imagine being here.
I know you can't have too many penguins to count. That's a fantastic number.
It's a great number and a really, really hard night, especially tonight when it's a really high tide. There's not a long stretch of beach for the penguins to cross the beach tonight. Good for them, but it's a little bit less viewing for us. And before we jump into a little bit more of your experience here at the Penguin Parade, Peter, can you just tell us why penguins come in at night time the way they do, just so that if we have any new viewers watching tonight, they know why they're watching penguins crossing the beach at dusk?
It's something they do. It's very precise. It's related to the light intensity at the time. So on a darker night, as you know, they'll come in earlier than a lighter night, a clear night. But we don't exactly know. But there's two theories. One is that they come in at dusk because they're extremely well insulated and they're a very northern based penguins. So they've got issues with heat stress and coming in at dark and doing their breeding activities or their burrow maintenance or whatever they're doing makes a lot of sense to do it at night. So that's one theory, that they're avoiding the high daytime temperatures. But the other one is that they're avoiding predation. They're avoiding being eaten by predators that are no longer very abundant here on Phillip Island. And this species of penguin, little penguin, they're only found on islands where there aren't mammalian predators, like foxes and dogs and things like that. But they still have predators that are birds, like sea eagles in particular. Some of the islands in Bass Strait that we've worked on in the past have these sea eagles that patrol up and down the beaches while it's daylight, and any penguins that come out early often get grabbed and taken away and consumed by the sea eagle or its chicks at their eyrie. So that's the theory I favour, that it's a behaviour that's related to a situation and a predator that's no longer particularly abundant on Phillip Island. There are a couple of breeding pairs of sea eagles on Phillip Island, but they don't seem to have any impact on little penguins.
That's so interesting. So everyone, I just learned something tonight. I didn't realise there were actually two theories out there. So thank you for shedding some light on that for us tonight, Peter. So again, these beautiful little guys, they're coming home back to Phillip Island, and we are kind of right in the thick of the action at the moment. There's kind of two things that are happening right now. One of those is that there are quite a few chicks in the colony. A lot of these penguins are on their second clutch, so they've had 2 eggs, raised their chicks, kicked them out of the burrows, and now they're on for round number 2. So there's lots and lots of chicks, and it's quite late in the season, isn't it, Peter? Normally there might only be a few chicks around about this time of year, but they're really going strong so far.
Yes, it's been a very successful breeding season. The average over the last 50 or so years has been producing, each pair of penguins, each female in particular, has produced one chick that's fledged, that's left the island.
So one of 2? Yeah.
Yep, one of 2. And that includes extra broods. And this year, all the colonies on the southern side of the island produced 1.3 chicks per pair of breeding penguins.
And was that just the first clutch, Peter?
No, that's
including now?
Both clutches.
Great. So they're already above average, so it's a really good breeding season, which is fantastic, again, while we get to see this. Now, Peter, I'm not sure if you've been out in the colony at night just yet, but if you have you seen any really fat, chunky penguins that have been coming home? And if so, what that might mean for our viewers?
Yeah, so after breeding is finished, the penguins go back to sea, and they stay up there for a couple of weeks, and they're fattening up for a process that all penguins have to go through. It's called a catastrophic molt, where they come ashore and they stay ashore for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks in fact, while they lose all their feathers and replace them with new feathers. So the new feathers actually push out the old feathers, and they can't go back to sea because they're just not waterproof and they're not well insulated. So they stay ashore and they don't drink, and they don't feed, and they look very unhappy and
Very grumpy.
Yes, they just certainly look grumpy, don't they? And they often have problems with ticks and fleas at this stage too, so they're itchy and it looks most uncomfortable. But after that, we get these bright new penguins with the new plumage, and they're much bluer than they are before molt, because the feathers on the penguins have these blue fringes, the new feathers, which wear off, and they become much darker as the year goes on. But that's a very important part of the year. And one of the things that our work has been doing with climate is that the timing of molt is actually getting earlier in the year. It's usually the middle of molt for the penguins is usually early March, but it's getting slightly earlier every year, and it's ending up that it's probably going to bring an end to most breeding seasons if it continues to warm at this particular rate. And so we'll see, as they do see with African penguins, we'll see an abandonment of chicks in the later stages of the breeding season, because the adults are responding to environmental cues and going off to molt.
Of course, they need to fatten themselves up so that they can spend 2.5 to 3 weeks on land, no food, no water. So they need to. Sorry.
No, yeah, that's exactly right. It's an amazing process, and it's actually, some of them double their body weight, and come ashore and go through this molt fast. So it's an amazing physiological phenomenon.
Yeah, and so if they need to have enough kind of food for themselves to be nice and fat, they're not going to be able to regurgitate and have that spare food for their chicks. So yeah, it's a really, really important thing. And I think a little bit later in the stream, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the other threats that these penguins face, and how each of us at home and as a community and as a global community, how we can help out these penguins and help reduce some of these impacts in their life. So stay tuned for that. So some different ways that you can help. Alrighty, Peter. So we got a little bit off topic, but I just wanted to return. We were originally talking about counting penguins and how back in the 1980s there were so few penguins coming up at the penguin parade. Can you tell us why that might have been? And just talk us kind of through that and some of the work that you've been doing to help bring this colony back up to a healthy 32,000.
Yes. Well, originally that was why I was employed here at Phillip Island in 1980. I'm also reminded when I'm talking about this by a quote that's attributed to John Lennon. It's life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. And I took on this job for 3 years, and I thought after that I'd solved the problems of the penguin world and move on to another position. But after 3 years, the whole situation was such a mess. There was we didn't have enough data really to convince people that how serious the problem was, even though since 1968 a group of citizen scientists called the Penguin Study Group had started collecting data on penguins at the penguin parade. And anyway, so to cut a long story short, the problems that I found was exactly what the Penguin Study Group had predicted. Really, the population was declining quite significantly, and in fact, based on the counts we did at the penguin parade for many years, there was going to be no penguins at the penguin parade by 1997 if the trends continued that we're observing.
How horrific!
I know. It was terrible, and it was. So there were a number of things that were obviously causing the problems, and one of them was a lot of penguins were being killed, particularly at the parade, by foxes, introduced foxes, that were introduced to Phillip Island to partly control rabbits, but also for hunting purposes, and dogs were ranging through the penguin colonies and killing a lot of chicks. So that was the first problem we needed to address. The second one was there was a village called the Summerland Estate in the middle of the penguin colony, and that consisted of 180 houses and motel and a general store and a shell museum.
I've heard about the good old Shell Museum.
Yes, that was a very interesting place actually. And there were another 600 building blocks in the estate that hadn't been developed yet, and there was a number of problems associated with the estate, not through any sort of fault of the people that lived there or holidayed there, but the penguins are very difficult to see on roads, and there was a large number, it was over 200 a year being killed on roads around the Summerland Peninsula, just because if you can imagine on a bitumen road or a dirt road, if a penguin turns away from you, it virtually disappears at night because it's got the same colour plumage on its back as the colour of the road. So there were going to be 700 nearly 800 houses with cars and dogs, and we had to, the only control method we had for foxes at that time was shooting them, and of course we couldn't be shooting anything in a housing estate, that just wouldn't be safe. So there were a number of problems associated with the housing estate, so we had some very difficult conversations about the future of the housing estate, and there were a lot of people involved in this process, and the Department of Planning at the time was very active in trying to resolve what the best solution was to the problem. And eventually it was agreed, somewhat reluctantly by some of the people that live there, of course, because you can have a lot of empathy for them and their holiday houses and the places where they've spent their Christmases and their children have grown up and things. So
it would have been a beautiful area to live and have penguins waddling up your driveway. But
I know, just a very special place. But anyway, that was resolved by actually by the late Joan Kerner when she took over the Ministry for Conservation in 1984-85, and she championed the cause, and so the houses were removed over and the other blocks brought back over a 25-year period. And so that basically, the habitat destruction was the other issue, that a lot of penguins were breeding along the roads, the verges of the roads in the estate, and some even bred under houses, which was difficult for people because they're quite noisy, especially at dawn when they go back to sea. They make a lot of noise and they're waking people up.
Hey Peter, do you how are you with your penguin calls? Can you imitate them?
I can only do one. That's the one they do to keep in touch with each other at sea, and that's a huck huck huck.
Huck huck huck.
Yes, I can't do. Can you do any of the others?
Look, I don't pretend to speak fluent penguin, but are you talking about the really noisy one, like the?
Yes. Yeah, that's not bad.
Thank
Have
you.
we got audio on these cameras?
No, we don't have audio on these cameras,
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay, I was thinking they were very quiet. Yes, but all these things came to pass, and we eradicated foxes from the island and got dogs under control. And the penguin population increased from around 11 to 12,000 in the early 1980s to 3 times that number now, and it's now the biggest colony in the world of the world's smallest penguin.
The biggest colony of the world's smallest penguin. So yeah, it's wonderful. I cannot get over how many penguins there are here on the beach. So this is just a bit of a testament to a lot of the work that's been done, that you've done in able to research and make those recommendations to Joan Kerner and everyone to try and get their housing buyback completed so that they weren't getting hit on roads and they had plenty of habitat that wasn't being taken up by human habitat for houses. So it's a really, really happy story, and we can all congratulate Peter Dann on the amazing work that he's done to help prevent this colony from going locally extinct. So,
Yes,
was that a bit of lightning on the ocean? It could be.
I should stress that I wasn't alone, of course. There were many people involved in the protection and saving of the penguin colony. But it's great to be part of that.
Yeah,
You
would
can
be.
you can actually see penguins swimming on the beach there,
Let's see. It's getting a
swimming
little
in the
bit.
pool.
Oh, in the pool. Are you talking about the pool in front of the Penguins Plus stand or in the actual
Yes,
ocean?
yes, yeah. That's a rare sight to have that pool of water there and to have birds swimming across it.
Again, it would have been back because of that massive storm that we had. Oh, there we go, jumping on in. Now, before we get too much further, Peter, just letting you know, and everyone back home, we've got about 5 more minutes left of the penguin count tonight before our penguin counters and our rangers down there will start turning off the lights, because that's what we do every single night. We only have these wildlife-friendly lights on for a certain amount of time every night, so that if any penguins want to come up a little bit later, they do so without any people around and without any lights on. So just wanted to give everyone and you, Peter, the heads up with that. So one thing I know that you did want to discuss a little bit tonight was other penguins around the world and some of the differences between them and how their colonies are doing compared to these little penguins just here, and how we can do our best in our own lives to be able to protect them.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we become aware of the situation of facing the other species of penguin in the world. There's 18 species of penguin, and 60% of them, of those species, are threatened in some way, which is doesn't include little penguins. Little penguins are probably declining in some, well, certainly declining in some places, but they've increased in others. So it's at the moment the population is considered to be not of concern. But the things that are causing the decline of the 60% of penguin species are things like climate change, pollution, particularly plastics and oil pollution, overfishing and industrial fishing, and habitat destruction, which also involves introduced predators, but also reduced breeding areas. And because these things are all caused by humans, they can all be remedied by humans too. So
all is not lost.
Exactly, and I just encourage people to, if they care about penguins, to get involved in some way. We can all do something that might contribute in a small way, but nevertheless, if enough of us do it in a significant way, to all of these issues, and certainly the reduction of plastics and the reduction of greenhouse gases are all something we can all play our small part in. So I'd encourage you to be involved and to get informed about these things, and we can then look forward to these other species of penguins thriving the way little penguins are on Phillip Island.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to share some things that I do in my life to exactly kind of do exactly what Peter said, to try and reduce my impact on the environment and penguins out at sea. So some of you, if you're watching on the New Year's Eve live stream, one of my New Year's resolutions was to try and reduce how much plastic packaging that I use when I go and do my shopping at Coles or Woolworths, because plastic packaging I found was one of the most kind of plastic that I used in my life. So really cutting back that has reduced how much plastic that I use, reduced how much plastic goes in the bin or into the recycling, and reduces the risk that it's going to head out into the ocean as well. Another thing that I've did actually the other day is I carpooled with Sky, our wonderful ranger Sky, who's also on the live stream, to work. Rather than having 2 cars on the road, we reduced our emissions by both carpooling together. So there's lots of different ways that you can reduce your plastic consumption, reduce how much greenhouse gases that you use. Do you have anything on the top of your mind that you actively do, Peter, to help out the penguins at home?
Yes. We've got solar panels and solar hot water services and double glazed windows, so our energy consumption is especially the coal-fired part of it is very small. But I share with you the reduction of plastics is an important thing we can all do. Sometimes it's not easy to do, but it's something we can do. It just takes a bit of effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Little bit of behaviour change, but if enough people do it, if there's a demand for it, if people are buying the products with that less plastic or no plastic instead of the ones that are wrapped in plastic, hopefully that's able to kind of drive some social change and reduce how much plastic packaging is used at the supermarket and things as well. So yeah, that's wonderful. Now before we leave tonight, Rach has been very, very busy writing down a few questions for you, Peter. So just before we finish off the live stream tonight, we might finish off with a few questions, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Beautiful. Rachel, let's have some questions for Peter.
Thank you very much. We've got some viewers wanting to know if penguins ever have got the third clutches of babies, penguin chicks, because we know we've got first and second. Maybe do we have the third one?
Beautiful. Did you hear that, Peter?
Yes, I think I've got the idea. Do they sometimes breed 3 times a year? Was that the question?
Yes. Do they sometimes breed 3 times a year?
It's very, very rare. It's commoner in southern New Zealand where little penguins also occur, but it's very, very rare in Australia. Even second broods are very rare in many years, but in a good year like this, when we've had a few second broods, it's great for the number of chicks that get produced.
Beautiful. Well, one thing that I remember learning about when I first started working at the Penguin Parade was the autumn breeding attempt. So do you want to just briefly kind of explain that? I'll let you explain that.
Yes, it's a very interesting thing. It happens around the equinox, and there's an interplay between penguin hormones, their body conditions, and light levels, and it's a bit of a confusion that seems to occur for penguins in after they've molted, and if they're in very good condition, if there's a lot of fish around,
and they're looking beautiful and sexy for their partners. Exactly,
they start to respond to the changing light levels and the equal day, equal nights hormonally, and it kicks off some sort of breeding reaction. So we get a lot of displaying and a lot of sexual activity, but not too much successful breeding, because it's eventually the food probably deteriorates in abundance, and the penguins don't have enough to bring back to their chicks. But it's a very interesting phenomenon, and something we seem to be seeing more and more of as time goes by.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Peter. Let's maybe have one more question.
One more.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Peter. One more question for you. When do the penguins get microchipped? Like when they were first go out, or when do you actually decide to microchip the chicks?
We microchip them when they're chicks, when they're quite large chicks, or when they're adults that we've never encountered before. So we have quite a few what we call study areas, where we go and visit the burrows every couple of weeks and see who's there and who they're breeding with, and how many chicks they've got, how many eggs they've got, that sort of thing. And when we first encounter those, we microchip them, because it also allows us to not have to handle the penguins every time we see them, because we have these things called microchip readers, which are like wands, and we can just put them close to the microchip, and it gives us a reading of the identity of the penguin. So things have really improved from when we used to put numbered flipper tags on the penguins, which weren't very good for them, it turned out. So the technology's really come on beautifully, and we now have automatic readers which read the tags as the penguins go over weigh bridges. So we get the weights, and we get the attendance pattern of individual penguins, which is a beautiful amount of data.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Well, it looks like they have just turned off the lights here back at the Penguin Parade. So maybe I can jump onto the Penguin Highway because I think we've still got a little bit of time and light left just down here. So you mentioned that our researchers do go to check our research study sites to check on and see how the penguins are doing, check on nest attendance, so to see exactly what you said, who's home, if they're on eggs, chicks and things like that. Now, I don't know, Peter, if you're the same as me, but if you've been checking in on our live burrow camera into the burrow of the chick that we call Bluey, have you been following him and his development?
I haven't looked lately, but I think I know what you're going to say. But anyway, go ahead.
Beautiful. Bluey is, so again, we don't know if it's a male or a female, too young to tell, but it is a whopping 1,170 grams. So
wow.
Really fat, chunky little chick, which means mum and dad have been doing an amazing job of bringing lots of food home for this little only child, just like me. So yeah, Bluey is looking in a really good state. It looks like he's starting to get some of his little kind of blue feathers on his flippers, which means soon it would be at the stage that we could be able to microchip him or her. But yeah, for all of you wattle watchers out there who have just been watching Bluey grow nice and big and strong, Bluey is doing really well. It was a bit hot and humid here today at the Penguin Parade. Some of you noticed that he was kind of breathing a little bit shallowly, and it's just because he's a little bit warm and it's a little bit humid, but Bluey's doing really well, especially being so late in the breeding season. So just like what Peter said, it's a testament to the parents and the amount of food that's out in the ocean, but they're obviously doing a really good job.
Bluey obviously weighs more than his parents do at the moment.
Yes.
So that's an amazing effort.
That's amazing effort. Now, Rach has something.
We've got tonight's number, Jordan.
Oh, we have the magic. Ooh. Do we want to wait for No, let's tell everyone tonight. So because it was dark and stormy, the penguins came home earlier than normal because it got a little bit darker at sunset. So before you release the number, I'm going to get Peter and I to have a bit of a guess as to how many penguins we think cross the beach tonight. So I'll go first, Peter. I'm going to guess 3,124. What about you, Peter?
What was it last night?
What was it last night?
3,521.
3,521.
I'll go 3,600.
Well, you're going a bit higher. Excellent. All right. What's the number, Rach?
The number tonight, 1,436.
1,000?
Yeah, 1,004.
Right.
Yeah, because
Cool.
might be high tide.
High tide, yeah.
Maybe.
Harder to tell. And remember also that we actually missed the first couple of groups coming in. Actually, you know what? I've got a little bit of a theory as to why the number might have been a little bit lower. Because we've seen that a little bit later in the count, there was tons and tons of penguins still coming up. So it was the first few brave couple of penguins crossing the beach early on. So there probably wasn't a lot of penguins in the first 20 minutes crossing the beach or so, which is why, yeah, the count, there's probably lots and lots more penguins to come up now that would have come up at about this time kind of last night. But because the count started early tonight, it kind of got a little bit cut off. So we were both way off tonight, Peter.
Yes,
but you know what? Well, I was
embarrassing.
closer. No jokes.
You were. Yes. You were much closer.
So yeah, I'm guessing we probably both assumed that amount of penguins were coming up for the time when we had that black screen. But no, it must have been a fairly slow start. So maybe we didn't miss too much in our live stream tonight. So good work for us. Beautiful. Alrighty, so before we sign off, Peter, oh my goodness, there is an eastern barred bandicoot just on the highway. It's going to be a little bit hard to see.
Excellent.
Can we see? There's a little critter. So this is one of the critically endangered little marsupials that we have that Peter was talking about a little bit. Oh, stop running away. It's got little stripes on its bottom.
Oh, beautiful.
You managed to see it, Peter?
Yes, it's just gone to my left.
Oh, yep. Just found it again. So again, with a lot of the work that you've done with helping to get rid of foxes. Oh, there it is. Here on Phillip Island, not only helping the penguins, but it's helping us bring back species back from the brink of extinction. You can see its little stripes on its bottom. Oh, how lovely. Alrighty, so on that beautiful last note, do you have any final messages for our viewers tonight, Peter, or have we covered everything that we planned?
I think just to reiterate that, just get informed and be involved. and the other penguin populations could well and truly use some attention and some advocacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we love these little guys, and we want to make sure all their cousins from here around to Africa, Antarctica, and South America are doing just as well as these ones just here. So thank you so much for telling us a little bit about yourself tonight, Peter, and thanks for all the work that you and your team have done over so many decades. It's absolutely wonderful, and we're so grateful that we now get to see these beautiful little penguins making their way home to Phillip Island, where they're nice and happy and safe. They're the largest colony of little penguins in the world, all thanks to you and your research. So thank you so much for all the work you do and coming along with us tonight.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right, what? Camera did not mean to do that. So without further ado, everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, we are running this expert series. We're doing a Meet the Team for 7 nights this week. Make sure you tune in tomorrow night for Megan and Brandon, who's going to be talking about all things plants and weeds and how we can protect. Oh, there's one penguin that just flopped on the highway over here. Hey, little dude. Must have a long way to get home, or you're a beautiful, big, chunky penguin. So tune in night after night. We've got some amazing guests coming through. Fingers crossed we don't have any power outages, so our live streams can run as normal. Thanks so much for bearing with us tonight, guys, and thanks again for Peter for being such a champ and dealing with the technological challenges. But yeah, keep tuning in. We will be here. Again, you will have Megan and Brandon tomorrow. And again, lots of agains. If you can't come and visit us anytime in the near future, remember you can donate to the Penguin Foundation. The link is in the description of the video, and every little bit counts to help us protect these beautiful little penguins that we have here right in front of us. So good night, everyone. And what we like to do, Peter, at the end of every single one of our streams is we like to say goodbye in penguin language, and we like to say goodbye using a huck. So in a moment, I'm going to put a thanks for watching screen on, but we are going to huck our way out of this live stream tonight. So bye, everyone. Huck.
Bye, everyone.
Huck, huck, huck,
Huck,
huck,
huck,
huck,
huck.